Your lies don't survive my truth.
The champagne flute shattered against my forehead before I even saw it coming. Crystal fragments mixed with crimson red as I staggered backward, the rooftop pool party suddenly silent except for the splash of someone diving for cover. "You worthless piece of garbage," my wife Eliza hissed, her perfectly manicured nails dripping with Dom Perignon. "How dare you embarrass me in front of my colleagues?" I wiped red fluid from my eyes, focusing on the scene that had led to this moment. There was Eliza, 35 and stunning in her black cocktail dress, standing waist-deep in the infinity pool with her arms wrapped around Victor Dorn, my boss. The same Victor Dorn who'd been signing my paychecks for 3 years, the same Victor Dorn whose silver Maybach I'd admired in the parking garage every morning like some kind of idiot. "Dave," Victor said, his voice carrying that smug tone I'd grown to hate during our Monday morning meetings. "Maybe you should head home, sleep this off." Sleep what off? The sight of my wife's tongue in another man's mouth? The realization that every late night at the office, every business trip to Chicago, every time she'd rolled away from me in bed claiming exhaustion had been a lie? "How long?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Eliza laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Does it matter? God, Dave, look at yourself. When's the last time you went to the gym? When's the last time you bought me something nice? When's the last time you made me feel like a woman instead of your roommate?" The crowd of corporate executives and their spouses formed a loose circle around us. I recognized most of them: Tanya from HR with her perpetual gossip-hungry expression, Maureen from accounting who always laughed too loud at Victor's jokes, Marcus, the security chief, flexing his muscles like he was hoping for trouble. "Answer me," I said, stepping closer to the pool's edge. "How long have you been screwing my boss?" "Dave, that's enough," Victor said, moving to shield Eliza. Water cascaded from his expensive suit as he climbed the pool steps. "You're drunk and you're making a scene." "I haven't had a single drink tonight." I reached into my jacket and pulled out my license .357 Magnum, the same one I'd carried during my 8 years as a military police officer. The same one I'd shown Eliza when we first started dating, back when she thought my service record was sexy instead of embarrassing. The crowd scattered like roaches when the lights come on. "Jesus Christ, Dave!" Eliza screamed. "Put that away!" I didn't point it at anyone. I just held it, feeling the familiar weight in my palm. "I asked you a question, Eliza. How long?" She glanced at Victor, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "6 months," she said. "Maybe 7. I stopped counting after the first time he made me come." The words hit harder than the champagne flute. 6 months. That meant it started right around the time I'd gotten my promotion to operations manager. Right around the time Victor had started inviting me to these company parties. Probably so he could laugh at the clueless husband while he screwed my wife. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said, sliding the tool back into its holster. "I actually thought I was lucky. Married to the most beautiful woman in the company, working for a successful CEO, living in a nice house in Westfield. I thought I'd finally made it." "You never made anything," Eliza spat. "Everything you have because of me. The house is in my name. The car payments come from my account. Even your pathetic job. Do you think Victor hired you for your sparkling personality?" Marcus stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "Mr. Dorn, want me to escort him out?" "Please do," Victor said. "And Marcus, make sure he understands that if he ever brings a weapon to a company function again, we'll be calling the police." I held up my hands as Marcus approached. "No need for the rough stuff, I'm leaving." But as I turned toward the rooftop exit, I heard Eliza's voice one more time. "Oh, and Dave, don't bother coming home tonight, or any other night. I'm filing for divorce on Monday." The laughter that followed me to the elevator was worse than the crimson red still trickling down my face. 3 hours later, I sat in Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar 6 blocks from the office building where my life had just imploded. The bartender, a grizzled ex-cop named Pete Morrison, kept refilling my whiskey without being asked. "You look like hell," Pete said, tossing a clean towel across the bar. "What happened to your head?" "My wife introduced me to some Dom Perignon," I said, dabbing at the cut. "Turns out we weren't properly acquainted." Pete laughed. "Let me guess. She was drinking it with someone else." "My boss, actually, in front of about 50 people." "Ouch." Pete leaned against the bar, studying my face. "You know, I've been tending bar for 15 years, and I can usually tell which guys are going to drink themselves stupid and go home to apologize, and which ones are going to do something about it. Yeah? Which one am I? That's what I'm trying to figure out. He poured himself a shot and knocked it back. You still got that tool on you? I nodded. Good. But if you're thinking about using it the wrong way, I'm going to have to cut you off and call a cab. I'm not going to shoot anyone, Pete. I'm not that stupid. Stupid's got nothing to do with it. I've seen plenty of smart men do dumb things when their wives cheat. Hell, I did a few myself. You were married? 23 years. She left me for my partner, my police partner, not my business partner. Guy I trusted with my life for 8 years, and he was screwing my wife in the back of his patrol car. What did you do? Pete grinned, and for the first time all night, I saw something dangerous in his eyes. I made them both very, very sorry, but I didn't break any laws doing it. That's the key, Dave. You want revenge? Make it count, make it legal, and make it last. My phone buzzed with a text message from Eliza. Your clothes are in garbage bags on the front porch. Don't ring the doorbell. Victor's here and we don't want to be disturbed. I showed Pete the message. He whistled low. Cold as a witch's tit. She's really twisting the knife. She always was thorough, I said. It's what made her good at her job. What does she do? Public relations. She specializes in crisis management for corporate executives. I laughed bitterly. Ironic, right? She's about to create the biggest crisis of her career. Pete refilled my glass. You got somewhere to stay tonight? My sister lives in Cranford. I can crash on her couch. Good. Get some sleep. Let your head clear. Tomorrow, you start planning. Planning what? Your comeback tour. Pete's smile was carnivory. See, the thing about revenge is that most people do it wrong. They get emotional, they get violent, they get stupid. But you're military. You know how to plan an operation. I thought about that as I drove to my sister Jennifer's house, my worldly possessions stuffed into 6 garbage bags in the back of my Honda Civic. Eliza had been right about one thing. She did pay for most of our lifestyle, the house, the furniture, even the lease on her BMW. I'd been so focused on trying to be a good husband that I'd let her take control of everything. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Jennifer answered the door in her bathrobe, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without asking questions. My little sister had been through her own messy divorce 2 years earlier, so she understood the shell-shocked expression of someone whose life had just been dynamited. Kitchen, she said, pointing down the hallway. I'll make coffee. You tell me everything. An hour later, Jennifer sat across from me at her kitchen table, shaking her head in amazement. She actually said that? About Victor making her come? In front of half the company, including his wife. His wife was there? I nodded. Patricia Dorn. Sweet lady, actually. She looked like she wanted to crawl under a rock. Jesus, Dave, what are you going to do? I thought about Pete's words, about planning an operation instead of just reacting emotionally. I'm going to destroy them both. How? I don't know yet, but I've got time to figure it out, and I've got nothing left to lose. Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You've got me, and you've got more strength than you realize. Eliza might have the money and the fancy job, but she just made a huge tactical error. What's that? She humiliated you in public. That means she's not just your enemy now. She's made enemies of everyone who witnessed it. Nobody likes to see someone get kicked when they're down, especially not that brutally. I hadn't thought about that, but Jennifer was right. The looks on people's faces hadn't just been shock at my wife's infidelity. There had been disgust at the cruelty of her words, sympathy for my obvious pain. Plus, Jennifer continued, she's sleeping with the boss. That's going to make a lot of people at your company very uncomfortable, especially the women. Office affairs are messy, and when one of the participants is the CEO, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. For the first time since the champagne flute hit my forehead, I smiled. You know what, Jen? You might be onto something. #. Chapter 2. The Blame Game. The police arrived at Jennifer's house at 6:30 Monday morning. I was drinking coffee on her front porch, watching the sunrise and trying to figure out my next move when 2 patrol cars pulled into her driveway. David Rourke? The first officer was young, maybe 25, with the kind of mustache cops grow when they're trying to look older than they are. That's me. You're under arrest for making terroristic threats and aggravated menacing. He was already reaching for his handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. I didn't resist. There was no point. Victor had obviously filed charges, and given that I'd pulled a tool at a corporate party, even though I'd never pointed it at anyone, I knew this was coming. Jennifer rushed outside in her pajamas as they loaded me into the patrol car. "Dave, don't say anything without a lawyer. Call Pete Morrison at Murphy's Tavern," I shouted back. "Tell him what happened." The Westfield Police Department was a small operation, just a dozen officers serving a town of 30,000 people. I'd been there before, back when I was married and respectable, dropping off donations for their annual charity drive. Now I was seeing it from the other side of the bars. They put me in a holding cell with a drunk college kid and a homeless guy who smelled like he'd been marinating in his own urine for a week. The college kid kept asking if I knew a good lawyer. The homeless guy just stared at the ceiling and muttered about government conspiracies. Around noon, Pete Morrison showed up with a lawyer named Sarah Chen. She was maybe 40, with steel gray hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that suggested she'd been dealing with cops and prosecutors for a long time. "Mr. Rourke," she said, settling into the plastic chair across from me in the interview room. "Pete filled me in on the basics. Tell me exactly what happened Friday night." I walked her through the entire evening, from arriving at the party to finding Eliza with Victor to pulling my tool. I didn't leave anything out, including the part where I'd fantasized about putting a bullet in Victor's smug face. "But you didn't point the weapon at anyone?" Sarah asked. "No, I just held it." "And you have a valid carry permit?" "Yes. Military background, clean record, renewed it 6 months ago." Sarah made notes on a legal pad. "The charges are bullcrap, but they're going to stick for now. Your boss has connections in this town, and he's painting you as an unstable ex-soldier who threatened him with a deadly weapon. What's my bail?" $25,000. Pete's already posted it." I looked at Pete through the interview room's glass window. He gave me a thumbs up. "Why would you do that for me? We barely know each other." "Because I've been where you are," Pete said, entering the room, "and because I think you're going to need all the help you can get." Sarah slid a business card across the table. "I'm going to need a $5,000 retainer. Pete says you're good for it." I thought about my savings account, which had maybe $3,000 in it. "I'll figure it out." "Actually," Pete said, "I've got a proposition for you. I need help with my private investigation business. Someone with your background, your attention to detail. The pay's not great, but it'll keep you afloat while we sort this mess out. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity to learn some new skills. Skills that might come in handy if you decide to fight back against the people who screwed you over." 3 hours later, I was a free man, at least temporarily. The restraining order Victor had filed meant I couldn't go within 500 feet of him, Eliza, or the office building where I'd worked for 3 years. I was also suspended without pay pending the outcome of the criminal charges. Jennifer picked me up at the police station. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better. Did you hear from Eliza at all?" "Oh, you could say that." Jennifer's voice was tight with anger. "She called this morning. Wanted to make sure I knew that you'd finally shown your true colors, and that she was lucky to get away from a violent psychopath before someone got hurt." "She said that?" "Word for word. Then she hung up on me when I told her what I really thought about her and her boss." We drove to Jennifer's house in silence. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and starting to realize just how completely my life had been dismantled in 72 hours. No job, no home, no wife, and now a criminal record to boot. But as we pulled into Jennifer's driveway, I noticed something that made me smile for the first time all day. Parked across the street was a silver Maybach with the license plate Vadorn 1. "That son of a witch," I muttered. "What?" "Victor's here. He's probably inside with Eliza going through my stuff, making sure they got everything." Jennifer followed my gaze and her jaw tightened. "In my neighborhood? On my street? Oh, hell no." Before I could stop her, she was out of the car and marching toward the Maybach. I caught up with her just as she started pounding on the driver's side window. "Hey!" she shouted. "You want to explain what you're doing on my street?" The window rolled down, revealing Victor's perfectly groomed face. He looked annoyed at being interrupted. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "I'm Dave's sister, and you're the piece of garbage who's been sleeping with his wife." Victor's expression shifted from annoyance to amusement. "Ah, family loyalty? How touching. You might want to have a talk with your brother about appropriate workplace behavior." "You might want to have a talk with your wife about what her husband's been doing in hotel rooms with his employees," Jennifer shot back. For just a moment, Victor's composure slipped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. How many other married women are you screwing, Victor? Is Eliza special or just convenient?" The front door of my former house opened, and Eliza emerged carrying a box of my belongings. She was wearing one of Victor's dress shirts over a pair of jeans, and her hair was disheveled in a way that made it obvious what they'd been doing inside. "Jenny?" Eliza called out, using the nickname I'd always hated people calling my sister. "What are you doing here?" "Making sure you didn't steal anything that doesn't belong to you," Jennifer replied. Eliza laughed. "Everything in that house belongs to me. Dave never contributed a dime to the mortgage or the furniture or anything else." "What about his personal stuff? His clothes, his books, his military medals?" "In the garage. He can pick them up when he's ready to act like an adult." I stepped forward, staying carefully outside the 500-foot restraining order boundary. "I'm ready now." Eliza's face hardened when she saw me. "You're not supposed to be here, Dave. Victor could call the police. I'm on a public street, and I'm here to collect my property. That's not a violation." Victor climbed out of his car, straightening his tie. "Actually, it is. The restraining order specifies that you can't be anywhere I am, regardless of the location." "Then leave," Jennifer said. "Problem solved." "I don't think so." Victor pulled out his phone. "I think I'll call the police and let them sort this out. Maybe another night in jail will help Dave understand the seriousness of his situation." That's when I realized something important. Victor wasn't just trying to steal my wife. He was trying to completely destroy me. The criminal charges, the restraining order, the public humiliation at the party. This wasn't about love or lust. This was about power. And that gave me an idea. "Go ahead and call," I said. "But while you're waiting for them to arrive, maybe you should call your wife too. Let Patricia know where you are and what you're doing." Victor's finger paused over his phone screen. "What did you say?" "I said maybe your wife should know that you're spending your Monday afternoon moving your girlfriend into the house where you've been having an affair for 7 months. Eliza stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. "You don't know anything about our relationship." "I know plenty. I know Victor's been charging hotel rooms to his corporate expense account. I know he's been using company cars for personal trips. I know he's been having his secretary make restaurant reservations for 2 people every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months." This was mostly bullcrap. I was guessing based on Eliza's schedule and Victor's habits, but their expressions told me I was hitting close to the mark. "You're fishing," Victor said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Am I? Then you won't mind if I share my observations with the company's board of directors, or with Patricia, or with the local newspaper's business reporter." Victor and Eliza exchanged a look, and I saw something I'd never seen before in either of their faces. Fear. "You wouldn't dare," Eliza said. "Try me." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Patricia Dorn's number, which I'd gotten from the company directory months earlier when I was organizing the annual Christmas party. "In fact, let's call her right now." "Wait," Victor said quickly, "let's not do anything hasty." "Why not? You didn't seem concerned about being hasty when you filed criminal charges against me. You didn't seem worried about being hasty when you suspended me without pay." Jennifer was grinning now, enjoying the show. "Yeah, Victor, what's the rush? Let's get everyone involved." I hit the call button and put the phone on speaker. It rang twice before Patricia Dorn's voice came through. Clear and pleasant. "Hello, Dave. How are you? I was so sorry to hear about your troubles at the party Friday night." "Hi, Patricia. I'm doing better. Thanks. Listen, I'm standing outside my old house right now, and Victor's here with Eliza. I thought you might want to know." There was a long pause. "Victor's where?" "He's here helping Eliza move some things around. They seem pretty comfortable together." Another pause, longer this time. "Put him on the phone, please." Victor looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole and die, but he took my phone. "Hi, honey. I can explain." "Don't." Patricia's voice was ice cold. "Just come home. Now, we need to talk." Victor handed me back my phone and walked to his car without another word. Eliza started to follow him, but he held up a hand. "Not now, Eliza. I need to handle this." "But Victor," "I said not now." He drove away, leaving Eliza standing in the driveway with a box of my belongings in her arms and a look of complete confusion on her face. "Well," Jennifer said cheerfully, "that was fun. Dave, want to go get your stuff now?" As I walked toward the house I'd called home for 5 years, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Friday night. Hope. Victor and Eliza had made their first mistake, and I'd been there to capitalize on it. It wouldn't be their last. #Chapter 3. Turning the tables. Pete Morrison's private investigation office was located above Murphy's Tavern in a cramped two-room suite that smelled like stale beer and cigarettes. The furniture was secondhand, the carpet was stained, and the coffee maker looked like it had survived several small explosions. "Welcome to the glamorous world of private investigation," Pete said, gesturing to a metal desk covered in file folders and empty pizza boxes. "Your workspace." It had been a week since the confrontation outside my former house, and I was starting to settle into my new reality. Criminal charges pending, divorce papers filed, and a job that paid roughly half what I'd been making as an operations manager. But for the first time in months, I felt like I had a purpose. "What's the caseload like?" I asked, sitting down in a chair that squeaked ominously. "Mostly cheating spouses and insurance fraud. Occasionally we get something interesting, like a missing person or a corporate investigation." Pete pulled a file from his desk and tossed it to me. "Speaking of which, I've been doing some research on your friend Victor Dorn." I opened the file and found photographs, financial records, and what looked like hotel receipts. "Where did you get all this?" "I still have friends in the police department, and Victor's not as careful as he thinks he is." Pete sat down across from me, grinning. "Want to know what I found?" "Everything." Victor's been having affairs for years, not just with Eliza, with at least 3 other women that I can document. His wife knows about some of them, but she's been looking the other way because divorce would cost her the lifestyle she's used to. I studied the photographs. Victor with a redhead at a downtown restaurant. Victor with a blonde entering a hotel. Victor with a brunette who looked familiar. "Wait a minute," I said, pointing to the brunette. "That's Maureen from accounting." "Bingo! Turns out your wife wasn't Victor's first office romance. Maureen was sleeping with him for 2 years before Eliza came along." "Does Maureen know about Eliza?" "Oh, she knows, and she's not happy about being replaced." Pete leaned back in his chair. "In fact, she's been talking to some of the other employees about Victor's pattern of workplace maltreatment." I felt a surge of excitement. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying Victor Dorn has made a lot of enemies over the years. And now that his affair with Eliza is public knowledge, some of those enemies are ready to start talking." Pete was right. Over the next few days, I learned more about Victor's business practices than I'd discovered in 3 years of working for him. He'd been skimming money from client accounts, inflating his expense reports, and using company resources for personal projects. None of it was technically illegal, but it was definitely against company policy. More importantly, I learned that Victor's position as CEO wasn't as secure as he pretended. The company's board of directors had been questioning his leadership for months, especially after a series of failed investments had cost the firm nearly $2 million. "The thing is," Pete explained over beers at Murphy's on Friday night, "Victor's been using his charm and his connections to stay in power. But charm only works if people like you. And right now, a lot of people don't like Victor very much. Because of the affair. Because of how he handled the affair. Humiliating you in public. Filing criminal charges. Acting like he's the sufferer. It rubbed people the wrong way." I thought about that as I walked back to Jennifer's house. Victor had overplayed his hand, and now he was vulnerable. The question was how to exploit that vulnerability without ending up in more legal trouble myself. The answer came to me the next morning when I was reading the local newspaper's business section. There was a small item about the company's upcoming annual shareholders meeting, where Victor would be presenting the year's financial results and outlining his vision for the future. I called Pete immediately. "I have an idea. I'm listening. What if Victor's presentation didn't go exactly as planned?" Pete was quiet for a moment. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it would be a shame if some uncomfortable questions got asked at that meeting. Questions about expense account irregularities, workplace maltreatment, executive compensation. You want to sabotage the shareholders' meeting? I want to give the shareholders the information they need to make informed decisions about their investment." Pete laughed. "I like the way you think. But how do we get that information to them without it being traced back to us?" "Leave that to me. I still have friends at the company, people who are fed up with Victor's bullcrap. They just need someone to show them how to fight back." The first person I contacted was Tom Bradley, a senior accountant who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times while Victor hired less qualified candidates from outside the company. Tom had always been friendly to me, and I suspected he had access to the financial records that would expose Victor's expense account misuse. We met at a diner in Newark, far from the office and anyone who might recognize us. "Dave, Tom said, sliding into the booth across from me. I heard about what happened at the party. That was rough, man. It was a learning experience, I said. Tom, can I ask you something? Off the record? Sure. Are you happy working for Victor? Tom's expression darkened. Why do you ask? Because I think he's been screwing over more people than just me, and I think it's time someone did something about it. I spent the next hour laying out everything Pete and I had discovered about Victor's business practices. Tom listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes on a napkin. Jesus, he said when I finished. I knew some of this stuff, but I didn't realize how extensive it was. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Tom was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. You know, I've got copies of Victor's expense reports going back 3 years. I've been keeping them because I suspected something wasn't right, but I never had the courage to speak up. Would you be willing to share those reports with the shareholders? If it could be done anonymously, yes. Victor's made my life hell for the past 2 years. It's time he got a taste of his own medicine. By the end of the week, I had recruited 4 other employees who were willing to provide evidence of Victor's misconduct. Sarah from HR had documentation of sexual maltreatment complaints that had been buried. Mike from IT had records of Victor using company equipment for personal projects. Jennifer from marketing, not my sister, but another Jennifer, had proof that Victor had been taking credit for other people's work. The plan was simple. At the shareholders' meeting, these employees would ask pointed questions about Victor's leadership, backed up by documentation that would be distributed to the attendees. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be traced back to me, just concerned employees exercising their right to hold management accountable. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at the company's headquarters. I wouldn't be able to attend because of the restraining order, but Pete would be there as a guest of one of the shareholders, recording everything on his phone. Monday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Victor's smug face, about Eliza's cruel words at the party, about the way they'd both assumed I was too weak and stupid to fight back. They were about to learn otherwise. The shareholders' meeting was held in the company's main conference room, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Victor stood at the front of the room in his best suit, projecting confidence and authority as he presented the year's financial results. According to Pete, who called me immediately afterward, everything went according to plan for the first 30 minutes. Victor talked about growth opportunities, market expansion, and his vision for the company's future. The shareholders seemed engaged and supportive. Then Tom Bradley raised his hand. Mr. Dorn, Tom said, standing up in the back of the room, I have a question about executive expenses. According to these records, he held up a thick folder, you've charged over $40,000 in personal expenses to the company credit card this year. Can you explain that? Victor's composure slipped for just a moment. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Tom. All of my expenses are business-related and properly documented. Really? Because I have receipts here for jewelry purchases, spa treatments, and hotel rooms that were never used for company business. Sarah from HR stood up next. I have a question too, Mr. Dorn, about the sexual maltreatment complaints that have been filed against you over the past 3 years. Why weren't these reported to the board of directors as required by company policy? The room was buzzing now, shareholders turning to look at each other with confusion and concern. Victor tried to regain control, but Mike from IT was already on his feet with his own folder of evidence. Mr. Dorn, can you explain why company servers have been used to store personal files, including what appear to be private photographs and correspondence? By the time Jennifer from marketing asked her question about plagiarized presentations, Victor was sweating visibly, and the shareholders were demanding answers. The meeting devolved into chaos, with board members huddling in urgent conversation and Victor trying unsuccessfully to deflect the accusations. It was beautiful, Pete told me later that evening. Victor looked like a deer in headlights, and the best part? Everything was documented. The employees had receipts, emails, photographs, everything. Victor couldn't deny any of it. What happened after the meeting? Emergency board session. Victor was suspended pending a full investigation. They're bringing in an outside firm to audit the books and review all the maltreatment complaints. I felt a surge of satisfaction unlike anything I'd experienced in months. What about Eliza? That's the really interesting part. Apparently, she tried to distance herself from Victor as soon as the meeting started going south. Told people she was just as shocked as everyone else by the allegations. Of course she did. Eliza's always been good at saving her own skin. Yeah, well, it might not work this time. Word is getting around the office that she knew about Victor's expense account fraud and helped him cover it up. Her job's not looking too secure either. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Victor and Eliza had thought they could destroy me without consequences, but they'd underestimated the power of people who'd been pushed too far. The war was just beginning, and I was finally winning some battles. Hash hash. Chapter 4. The office is a battlefield. The video went viral on Wednesday morning. I was sitting in Pete's office reviewing a case file about a cheating husband when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, social media alerts, all coming in faster than I could read them. What the hell? I muttered, opening the first message. It was from my sister Jennifer. Dave, are you seeing this? Check Channel 7's website right now. I pulled up the local news station's homepage and found a video titled CEO Meltdown at Shareholders Meeting. The thumbnail showed Victor Dorn's red, sweating face as he tried to answer Tom Bradley's questions about expense account fraud. Someone had recorded the entire confrontation and leaked it to the media. Pete, I called out, you need to see this. He came over and watched the video over my shoulder, grinning as Victor stumbled through increasingly desperate explanations for his behavior. Well, I'll be damned. Looks like your boy Victor's having a bad week. The video had already been viewed over 50,000 times, and the comments section was brutal. People were calling Victor everything from a corporate sleazeball to a pathetic excuse for a leader. Several comments specifically mentioned his affair with Eliza, describing her as a homewrecker, and worse. My phone rang. It was Sarah Chen, my lawyer. Dave, please tell me you had nothing to do with that video. I didn't record it, and I didn't leak it, I said honestly. I wasn't even at the meeting. But you organized the questions? I hesitated. I may have provided some concerned employees with information that helped them hold management accountable. Sarah sighed. That's what I was afraid of. Victor's lawyer called this morning. They're claiming you orchestrated a conspiracy to defame their client and damage his reputation. Can they prove that? They don't have to prove it. They just have to convince a judge that you violated the restraining order by interfering with Victor's business activities. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means you could be looking at jail time, real jail time, not just an overnight stay. I hung up and stared at the video, which was now approaching 100,000 views. I'd wanted to expose Victor's corruption, but I hadn't anticipated the media attention. And I definitely hadn't considered that it might land me in prison. Pete must have sensed my panic because he put a hand on my shoulder. Hey, don't worry about it. Sarah's just being cautious. There's no way they can prove you organized anything. What if one of the employees talks? What if they admit I gave them the information? Then we deal with it. But right now, you need to focus on the positive. Victor's career is over. The board will fire him, probably today, and Eliza's going down with him. Pete was right about Victor. By Thursday morning, the company had issued a press release announcing his resignation and the appointment of an interim CEO. The investigation into his expense account fraud was continuing, but his days of corporate power were finished. Eliza's situation was more complicated. She hadn't been fired, but she'd been transferred to a different department and stripped of most of her responsibilities. According to my sources inside the company, she was being treated like a pariah by her former colleagues. Nobody wants to be associated with her, Tom Bradley told me during a phone call Thursday evening. She tried to eat lunch in the break room today, and 3 different tables got up and left when she sat down. What's she saying about Victor? That's the interesting part. She's telling everyone that he manipulated her, that she was just as much a sufferer as you were. She's even claiming that he threatened her job if she didn't sleep with him. I laughed bitterly. That's bullcrap. Eliza was a willing participant from day one. Yeah, well, nobody's buying it, especially after Maureen from accounting started talking about her own relationship with Victor. Turns out Eliza knew about Maureen and didn't care. She just wanted to climb the corporate ladder. Friday afternoon, I got a call from an unexpected source. Patricia Dorn, Victor's wife. Dave, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the company directory. Not at all, Patricia. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, actually. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For opening my eyes. I knew Victor was cheating, but I didn't realize how extensive it was, or how public he was making it. The video of that shareholders' meeting was the push I needed to finally file for divorce. I was surprised by the gratitude in her voice. I'm sorry you had to go through all this, Patricia. You didn't deserve it. Neither did you. Victor and that woman humiliated you in front of everyone, and then they tried to destroy your life when you fought back. But you know what? They underestimated you. I'm not sure I won anything. I'm still facing criminal charges, and my career is pretty much over. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Dave, can I ask you something? Are you planning to keep fighting them? What do you mean? I mean, Victor's not finished. He's angry and embarrassed, and he blames you for everything that's happened. He's going to try to hurt you again. Let him try. I'm not the same person I was 3 weeks ago. Good, because I might be able to help you. How? Victor kept records of everything. Financial documents, emails, photographs. He was paranoid about people betraying him, so he documented every conversation, every transaction, every relationship. I have access to all of it. My pulse quickened. What kind of records? Everything. His affairs, his business dealings, his plans to frame you for threatening him. All of it. Patricia, if you're serious about this, we need to meet in person. Can you come to my office tomorrow? I'll be there. Saturday morning, Patricia Dorn walked into Pete's office carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the kind of determined expression I'd seen on soldiers before a dangerous mission. Gentlemen, she said, setting the briefcase on Pete's desk, let me show you what my husband has really been up to. For the next 3 hours, Patricia laid out a case against Victor that was more damning than anything Pete and I had uncovered on our own. Financial fraud, tax evasion, blackmail, witness intimidation. Victor had been running his company like a criminal enterprise, and he documented every illegal act. Why would he keep records of this stuff? Pete asked, flipping through a folder of incriminating emails. Because Victor trusts no one, Patricia explained. He kept these files as insurance in case any of his partners or employees tried to betray him. He never imagined his own wife would be the one to expose him. The most interesting documents were the ones related to me. Victor had been planning to frame me for threatening him weeks before the shareholders' meeting, even before the office party where I'd pulled my tool. He'd instructed Marcus, his security chief, to provoke me into a confrontation and then claim I'd attacked him unprovoked. This is incredible, I said, reading through Victor's emails to his lawyer. He was setting me up from the beginning. It gets better, Patricia said, pulling out another folder. Here are his communications with Eliza. You'll notice that she was a willing participant in the plan to destroy your reputation. The emails between Victor and Eliza were brutal. They joked about my pathetic attempts to be a good husband, made fun of my military service, and planned ways to humiliate me in front of our mutual friends. One email from Eliza particularly stung. Dave actually thinks I love him. It's almost sad how desperate he is for approval. But the most damaging documents were the ones that proved Victor had been embezzling company funds for years, using the money to pay for his affairs and maintain his lavish lifestyle. The evidence was ironclad: bank records, receipts, witness statements from employees who'd been forced to help cover up his crimes. Patricia, I said, this information could send Victor to prison for a very long time. That's the idea. But I want to make sure you get your revenge first. Victor destroyed your life for his own amusement. I think it's only fair that you return the favor. Pete leaned back in his chair, grinning. Lady, I think I'm in love with you. Patricia smiled. Save it for someone single, Mr. Morrison. Now, Dave, what do you want to do with this information? I thought about Victor's smug face at the office party, about Eliza's cruel laughter, about the way they'd both assumed I was too weak to fight back. They'd tried to destroy me, but instead they'd created their own worst enemy. I want to destroy them both, I said, completely and publicly. Then let's get to work. Chapter 5. The Ruin. The press conference was scheduled for Monday morning at 10 o'clock. Patricia had arranged for it to be held at the downtown Marriott, in the same ballroom where Victor had announced his vision for the future just 6 months earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me. Are you sure you want to do this? Sarah Chen asked as we reviewed my prepared statement Sunday night. Once you go public with these allegations, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment Victor filed criminal charges against me, I replied. At least this way, I'm fighting on my own terms. The plan was simple but devastating. I would present evidence of Victor's financial crimes to the media, backed up by Patricia's documentation and testimony from the employees who'd been forced to participate in his schemes. The criminal charges against me would be exposed as a vindictive attempt to silence a whistleblower, and Victor's reputation would be destroyed beyond repair. Eliza's destruction would be more personal. The emails Patricia had provided showed that she'd been an active participant in Victor's plan to humiliate me, and I intended to read some of the most damaging passages on live television. "What about the restraining order?" Sarah asked. "Technically, you're not supposed to be talking about Victor in public." "The restraining order was obtained through fraud," I said. "Once the media sees the evidence that Victor was planning to frame me, that order becomes worthless." Monday morning arrived gray and rainy, which seemed appropriate for what I was about to do. Pete drove me to the hotel where Patricia was already waiting with 3 boxes of documents and a team of lawyers she'd hired to ensure everything was handled properly. "How do you feel?" she asked as we set up in the ballroom. "Like I'm about to jump out of an airplane without a parachute," I admitted. "Good, that means you're taking this seriously." The media turnout was better than I'd expected. 2 local television stations, the newspaper's business reporter, and a freelance journalist who specialized in corporate corruption. Not exactly 60 Minutes, but enough to ensure the story would get coverage. At exactly 10 o'clock, I stepped up to the podium and looked out at the small crowd of reporters and camera operators. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. My name is David Rourke, and 3 weeks ago, my life was destroyed by a man who thought he was above the law." I spent the next 20 minutes laying out the case against Victor Dorn, supported by documents, recordings, and testimony from witnesses who'd finally found the courage to speak out. I described his financial crimes, his pattern of sexual maltreatment, and his systematic misuse of corporate power. But the most devastating part of the presentation was when I read from the emails between Victor and Eliza. "This is from an email my wife sent to Mr. Dorn 2 months ago," I said, holding up a printed copy. Quote, "Dave is so pathetic. He actually bought me flowers yesterday and apologized for working late. If he knew what we were doing in your office while he was in those meetings, he'd probably eliminate himself. LOL." End quote. I could see the reporters scribbling notes furiously. This was the kind of personal drama that would make the story irresistible to readers. "And this is from Mr. Dorn's response," I continued. Quote, "Your husband is a useful idiot. I'm going to promote him to operations manager so he'll be too busy to notice what we're doing. Plus, it will make it even more humiliating when I fire him." End quote. The questions from the reporters were exactly what I'd hoped for. They wanted to know about the financial fraud, the maltreatment allegations, and the conspiracy to frame me for threatening Victor. I answered everything honestly, backed up by Patricia's documentation. The story broke online within an hour of the press conference. By noon, it was trending on social media. By evening, it had been picked up by national news outlets. Victor's response was swift and predictable. His lawyers issued a statement denying all allegations and threatening to sue me for defamation. But the evidence was too overwhelming, and within 24 hours, the FBI had opened an investigation into his financial crimes. Eliza's response was more interesting. She called me Tuesday evening, crying and begging for forgiveness. "Dave, please, you have to understand. Victor manipulated me. He threatened my job, my career. I was scared." "Bullcrap, Eliza. I read your emails. You were enjoying every minute of it." "Those emails were taken out of context. I was just trying to keep Victor happy so he wouldn't fire me. By mocking your husband and planning his destruction? By laughing about his pain?" She was sobbing now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. "Dave, I'm losing everything. My job, my friends, my reputation. People are calling me horrible names. I can't even go to the grocery store without someone recognizing me." "Good," I said, and hung up. Wednesday brought more good news. The company's board of directors had voted to terminate Victor's employment and claw back his severance package. The FBI had seized his bank accounts and frozen his assets. His wife's divorce filing included a claim for damages based on his infidelity and financial crimes. But the best news came from Sarah Chen. "The prosecutor's office called," she said during our Thursday morning meeting. "They're dropping all charges against you. Apparently, the evidence of Victor's conspiracy to frame you was pretty convincing." "What about the restraining order?" "Voided. You're free to go anywhere you want. Talk to anyone you want." For the first time in a month, I felt truly free. The criminal charges that had been hanging over my head were gone. Victor's attempt to destroy me had backfired spectacularly, and now he was the one facing prison time. But I wasn't finished yet. There was one more score to settle, and it required a more personal touch. Friday evening, I drove to the upscale restaurant where Eliza and I had celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary just 8 months earlier. She was there, as I'd expected, sitting alone at the bar and nursing a martini. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her makeup was smeared, and her expensive dress couldn't hide the fact that she'd lost weight and wasn't sleeping well. "Hello, Eliza." She turned and saw me, her eyes widening with a mixture of fear and hope. "Dave, what are you doing here? I wanted to see how you were doing. You look like hell." "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear right now." I sat down next to her and ordered a whiskey. "I heard you got fired today." "Laid off. There's a difference." "Not really. Either way, you're unemployed and unemployable. No company is going to hire someone who's been all over the news as a corporate homewrecker." Eliza's face crumpled. "Why are you doing this to me? Haven't you hurt me enough?" "Hurt you?" I laughed. "Eliza, you destroyed our marriage, humiliated me in public, and conspired with your lover to frame me for a crime I didn't commit. And you think I'm the one who's been doing the hurting?" "I made mistakes, okay? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "No, you're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught." I finished my drink and stood up to leave. Eliza grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Dave, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need your help. I don't have anywhere else to go." I looked down at her, this woman who'd once been the center of my world and felt nothing but contempt. "You should have thought about that before you decided to betray me. Enjoy your new life, Eliza. You earned it." As I walked out of the restaurant, I could hear her sobbing behind me, but I didn't look back. That chapter of my life was over, and I was ready to write a new one. #. Chapter 6. High noon at the pool. 6 months later, I was a different man. The private investigation business had taken off beyond Pete's wildest expectations. The publicity from the Victor Dorn case had brought in dozens of new clients, and we'd had to hire 2 additional investigators to handle the workload. I'd also started a consulting business, helping other whistleblowers navigate the complex process of exposing corporate corruption. But success hadn't made me soft. If anything, it had sharpened my edge, taught me that the world was full of Victor Dorns and Elizas who thought they could prey on decent people without consequences. I was wrong about that being the end of it, though. Victor Dorn was released from federal prison on a Tuesday morning in October, after serving 6 months of a 2-year sentence. His early release was the result of a plea bargain and good behavior, but it didn't matter. He was out, and according to my sources, he was looking for revenge. The call came that evening. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "Hello, Dave. Miss me?" "Victor, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. I've had a lot of time to think about what you did to me. 6 months in a federal penitentiary gives a man perspective on what's really important. And what's that? Payback." I wasn't surprised. Men like Victor don't learn from their mistakes. They just get angrier about being caught. "What do you want, Victor?" "I want to meet, face to face, man to man, no lawyers, no media, no hiding behind other people." "Where?" "The rooftop pool at the Meridian Hotel, where this all started. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. The Meridian Hotel, the scene of my original humiliation, where Eliza had wrapped herself around Victor while I watched like a fool. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I'll be there. Come alone, Dave, and bring that tool of yours. You might need it." The line went dead. I called Pete immediately. "Victor's out and he wants to meet." "Where?" "The hotel where it all started. He specifically mentioned my tool." Pete was quiet for a moment. "Could be a trap. Could be he's planning to claim you threatened him again. Could be. But I'm going anyway." "Then I'm going with you." "He said to come alone." "Duck what he said. You're not walking into an ambush by yourself." Wednesday evening was unseasonably warm for October, and the rooftop pool area was empty except for a few hotel guests enjoying drinks at the bar. I arrived early, wanting to scout the location and make sure Victor wasn't planning any surprises. He showed up at exactly 9 o'clock, looking older and harder than I remembered. Prison had changed him, stripped away some of the polished veneer that had made him so effective as a corporate executive. Now he just looked like what he'd always been underneath, a hunter. "Dave, you look good. Success agrees with you." "Prison doesn't agree with you, Victor. You look like crap." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. 6 months in federal lockup will do that to a man, especially when that man used to run a $50 million company. "You brought that on yourself." "Did I? Or did you orchestrate my downfall because you couldn't handle the fact that your wife preferred a real man?" I felt the familiar surge of anger, but I kept it under control. Is that what you tell yourself? That Eliza left me because you're more of a man? She left you because you're weak, because you're a loser who never amounted to anything. Where is Eliza, by the way? I heard she moved back in with her mother after she lost her apartment. Victor's expression darkened. Eliza was a mistake, a temporary lapse in judgment. You mean she dumped you the moment you got arrested? She was never important, just a way to get to you. Bullcrap. You were in love with her, and she threw you away like garbage the second you became a liability. Victor stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. You want to know the truth, Dave? The truth is that I destroyed your marriage for fun, because I could, because men like you deserve to be humiliated. And how did that work out for you? It worked out fine until you decided to play detective, but that's okay because now I get to finish what I started. Which is what, exactly? Victor smiled, and I saw something genuinely dangerous in his eyes. I'm going to eliminate you, Dave, right here, right now, and then I'm going to claim self-defense. He reached inside his jacket, and I saw the outline of a tool. But before he could draw it, Pete Morrison stepped out from behind the bar area, his own weapon already in his hands. I don't think so, Victor. Victor froze, his hand still inside his jacket. This is a private conversation. Not anymore. Pete moved closer, keeping his tool trained on Victor. Take your hand out of your jacket, slowly. Victor complied, revealing a snub-nosed .38 revolver. You can't prove I was going to use this. Actually, I can. I pulled out my phone, which had been recording the entire conversation. You just confessed to planning a homicide. On tape. Victor's face went pale as he realized what had happened. You set me up. I learned from the best. You taught me that the only way to deal with hunters is to be smarter than they are. Pete had already called 911, and within minutes, the rooftop was swarming with police officers. Victor was arrested for attempted homicide and violation of his parole terms. This time, there would be no plea bargain, no early release. As they led him away in handcuffs, Victor turned back to me one last time. This isn't over, Dave. Yeah, it is. But he was wrong about one thing. It wasn't over yet. The final act came 2 weeks later when Eliza called me for the last time. Dave, I heard about what happened with Victor. Are you okay? I'm fine, Eliza. What do you want? I wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not just the bullcrap I gave you before. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I want you to know that I regret it every day. Do you? Yes. I threw away the best thing in my life for a man who didn't give a damn about me. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed the only person who ever really loved me. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Eliza, do you remember what you said to me at the pool that night when I asked how long you'd been sleeping with Victor? Dave, please. You said you stopped counting after the first time he made you come. Do you remember that? She was crying now. I was angry. I was trying to hurt you. Well, congratulations. You succeeded. But here's the thing about trying to destroy someone, Eliza. Sometimes they don't stay destroyed. Sometimes they come back stronger. I know, I can see that. You've built a new life, a successful business. I'm proud of you. Don't be. I didn't do this for your approval. Then why? Why did you fight so hard to destroy Victor and me? I thought about that question for a long time before answering. Because you both made the same mistake. You thought I was weak. You thought I was pathetic. You thought I would just roll over and accept whatever you did to me. And you proved us wrong. No, Eliza. I proved that the most dangerous person in the world is someone who has nothing left to lose. You and Victor took everything from me. My marriage, my job, my reputation, my freedom. But in doing that, you also freed me from caring about consequences. What are you saying? I'm saying that when you humiliate someone in public, when you destroy their life for your own amusement, you better make sure they don't survive it. Because if they do, they're going to come for you with everything they have. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Dave, I know this probably doesn't mean anything to you now, but I want you to know that I did love you. Maybe not the way I should have, but I did love you. I know you did, Eliza. That's what made your betrayal so effective. I hung up the phone and deleted her number from my contacts. That was the last time we ever spoke. 6 months later, I heard that Eliza had moved to California, where she was working as a receptionist at a small law firm. Victor was serving a 15-year sentence for attempted homicide and would likely die in prison. As for me, I was sitting in my new office, a real office this time, with windows and decent furniture, reviewing case files for the corporate corruption investigation that had made me wealthy and famous. Pete walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee and a newspaper. "You made the front page again." I looked at the headline. "Local whistleblower helps expose billion-dollar fraud." "Not bad for a loser," I said, remembering Eliza's words from that night at the pool. "You know what the funny thing is?" Pete said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "What's that?" Victor and Eliza thought they were hunters. They thought they were the ones with all the power, all the advantages. But they forgot the most important rule of predation. Which is, Pete grinned, the same dangerous smile I'd seen that first night at Murphy's Tavern. Sometimes the prey fights back, and when it does, it's usually hungrier than the hunter. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, other Victor Dorns were humiliating other Dave Rourkes, thinking they were untouchable, thinking their sufferers were too weak to fight back. They were about to learn otherwise. The tool in my desk drawer, the same .357 Magnum that had started this whole mess, wasn't loaded, and I hoped I'd never need to use it again. But it was there, a reminder of what I'd learned about power and revenge and the price of underestimating desperate people. Funny thing about muzzles, I thought, remembering Pete's words from that first night. Sometimes you need to take them off to be heard. I'd taken mine off, and the whole world had listened.